Perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Pallas, and on behalf of my co-founders, Tom Martin and Kat Moon, welcome to the American Legal Technology Awards State of the Legal Industry webinar. I'll tell you what, we've really got a great panel, and I'm so happy to have them all here, and I'm going to introduce them to you all in just a minute. But we have a couple of things first. Let's start here about the American Legal Technology Awards. I'm happy to tell you that our 23 nationally recognized amazing judges poured through 232 unique nominations. That's a new record for us to pick the top 3 nominees in each of our 10 categories, which are access to justice, courts, AI, education, enterprise, individual, journalism, law firm, startup, and lifetime achievement. Our thanks to all of our 23 judges that have taken time to sort through so many of your nominations. And thank you to each of you for giving us these nominations. Finally, congratulations to our 3 finalists of each of these categories. They don't know, by the way, who is going to win, because that announcement is going to be made live in Austin, Texas on October 6th at the American Legal Technology Awards Live Gala, aka Law Prom. We'll be at the Bar Mansion on Sunday, October 6th, the night before ClioCon begins. So I'm overjoyed to tell you that we're almost, not quite, almost sold out for the gala. But if you don't have a ticket to Law Prom, then it's time to go get one. And Tom Martin will post that here so you can go right to the site and get a ticket right now, or do it at the end of the webinar. When they're gone, they are gone. So please join us. You can find out more about the American Legal Technology Awards. You can find out more about the gala at americanlegaltechnology.com. Okay, team, here we go. Today, we have a panel to discuss the state of the legal industry. And a lot has happened in these last 4 years. In fact, a lot has happened in this last year. So many changes. So panelists, I'm going to ask you questions on these themes, right? I know you know what they are. It's AI, right? It's everywhere. ChatGPT and AI have been integrated throughout legal. How's that changing the profession? How are companies leveraging AI to improve services and products and the practice of law? This is a particular one for Mark Homer, CEO of GNGF. There's been a big shift in marketing. Who's getting it right with AI and who's missing out? And then last, I'm going to ask all of our panelists for their predictions at the end of the webinar about what will a successful law firm look like in 2025, and what do you see changing in our profession as we get there? So much to talk about, so little time, and predictions to make sure we have room to get to. So let me introduce you to our amazing panelists. First, we have Dru Armstrong, who is the CEO of Affinipay. If those of you are following along with the amazing path of Affinipay, it's the parent company of not one, but 4 companies that have been acquired under one umbrella: LawPay, CasePeer, MyCase, DocketWise, and I have a feeling, Dru, that there's more coming. This is a company who is consolidating the legal field to provide legal services to all of us in the profession, and we're very happy to have you with us, Dru. Welcome. Joshua Lenon, lawyer in residence at Clio. I don't know what number you are at Clio, but I'm going to say you're like employee number 9, which is amazing because Clio is now valued over $3 billion, just had a $900 million investment in the company, one of the largest tech companies, certainly the largest in legal, and is out there internationally. And Joshua's been there from the beginning as a lawyer in residence and speaks regularly across the country on legal issues, technology, market expansions. He's amazing. We're so glad to have you here, Joshua. And Cosimano, you know her, you've seen her here before. She's out and about around the country, ARAG's general counsel. She directs the company's legal, regulatory, compliance, attorney relations. That's all. That's all you do, right, Ann? It's just all of those things that you manage. She's got 15,000 lawyers that she oversees as part of her company, and does a enormous amount of work for access to justice. We're thankful for both your company's work and for you being here, Ann. And finally, Mark Homer, founder, CEO, amazing law firm marketer, and the guy who made GNGF, Get Noticed, Get Found, put it on the map and has grown it so much that he has some announcement about the very next steps of GNGF. And Mark, I'll let you do that. He has a best-selling book, Online Law Practice Strategies. He's the co-host of a podcast, Your Law Firm is a Business. Take it to the next level. He's been presenting to companies big and small, Fortune 500, solo practitioners. He's out there everywhere, and we're so glad to have you here with us, Mark. Thank you. Panelists, woo, woo, I love having you guys out here. What a nice way to start a morning and have a cup of coffee and have all of you to chat with. Can we start here? I know each of you have some things you want to tell us, and I want to hear about all of them. Joshua Lenon, let's start with you. Tell me about how this legal space is changing. And if I can, nod, nod, wink, wink, Clio Cloud Conference is coming up pretty soon. There is this thing called the Legal Trends Report. And if you can give us just a touch, hint, what's going on? Anyway, floor is all yours, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, Patrick. It's great to be here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. It's telling me it is not turned on. So I might need permission. There we go. Sharing it now and turning on the PowerPoint. So thanks, everybody. I'm Joshua Lenon. I'm the lawyer in residence in Clio. And Patrick, technically, I'm employee number 83 at Clio. Yeah, because we actually built a great support and sales team prior to me joining. But I am in the top 10 longest serving employees. So that number is getting smaller and smaller. I want to focus on artificial intelligence impact on efficiency and what the expectations surrounding efficiency are going to be on the legal profession. And this is something that I don't think everybody's fully accepted yet, but we're starting to see some differences around that. For those of you who don't know, I have the weird title lawyer in residence. I'm basically a legal scholar researching the practice of law and the impact of technology. And I've been doing so for 12 years and 11 months now. So next month will be my 13th anniversary. And I want to start off with a stat from our 2023 Legal Trends Report, where we asked lawyers, do you want more AI in your practice? We had already found that AI had made substantial inroads into the practice of law, with 1 in 5 lawyers at that time telling us they were using artificial intelligence in some capacity in the practice of law. And what we found is both of those that were using AI and those that weren't, over half want to use more AI. And that's good because they think that AI is going to help them. Ooh, I'm not advancing, there we go. They think AI is going to help them in improving efficiencies, but they do worry about error, and they also worry about that they want it to be reliable for their clients. So why are we worried about clients? Because they're the people who pay us and their expectations matter. Fortunately, most clients tell us that they would be comfortable with lawyers using AI, especially if it gives the lawyer more time on their case and if it makes the legal practice more affordable. That's a very big one that stands out to me because I think we're going to be seeing outside pressure on the legal industry to not only adopt artificial intelligence, but also to cut their fees and costs because of it. And that's a question that I'm raising because can law firms be sustainable when everybody else expects legal services to be cheaper? So where do clients really want trust lawyers using AI? Well, they said that they want it to be disclosed, that they want it to use for legal research. They're less likely to use it for communication. They want to talk to their lawyer. But clients see this benefit because it gives greater efficiency, higher quality legal services, they believe. And the big one in the middle for me is better affordability. when we look at the affordability of legal services, we know that there is an access to justice gap between those who can get legal aid, unfortunately, because they are destitute, and those who can afford legal services because they're wealthy. And then there's this missing middle in between. Now, we're really lucky to have ARAG here. They're actually one of the solutions to focus on this missing middle, but we have to look at the rest of the legal profession and what's going to be the impact on them. When we look at fees, what we have to understand is most people look at fees from attorneys only in terms of hourly billing. Time equals money. And our very own ethics rules of professional conduct equate this as well. Point number 1 in Rule 1.5 on how to adjust your fees is the time and labor required. If artificial intelligence is starting to do this labor for us, what is the expectation upon fees? Well, when we look at the report from the New York State Bar Association on artificial intelligence, they actually talk about the fact that if you can use a tool to make things better for your client, including cheaper, you should use it. You should be adopting these tools. You should be taking the financial hit. You can add a surcharge, but what we see is just like with other legal research fees, mileage, reimbursement for paper costs, clients have pushed back on those for a long time, and I expect them to push back as well. This is, I think, kind of the key slide here. Most legal professionals are not worried that AI will be replacing them. I think that might be a misplaced worry. Clients are telling us that they're actually kind of happy to get advice from artificial intelligence, not even from lawyers, but from artificial intelligence. And we know that they're doing so because of the imposition of artificial intelligence answers in search engines like Google and Darwin, and the types of information that they're searching for and the trends that have happened. But this is not a new trend. Back in 2017, JP Morgan actually was able to reduce 360,000 lawyer hours by using a program called COIN, or contract intelligence, to interpret commercial loan agreements. And it saved them tens of thousands of dollars per lawyer every year. And they described it in this article as less error prone and never asked for a vacation. It's 2017. And judges are also feeling this as well. We saw in a case against Port Dalhousie Vitalization Corporation in 2018, a judge actually reduced attorney's fees because it said artificial intelligence could have done this job faster and cheaper. So as we look to the state of legal industry, both lawyers and clients are looking for artificial intelligence and anticipating its impact. But what I think is unanticipated is just how drastically there's going to be this mismatch in fee expectations and how law firms need to adjust to that in the future. And spoiler alert, Patrick, I've got a whole chapter in our upcoming legal trends report that's going to take a look at the financial impact of automation upon law firms and what law firms should be doing to prepare for it. It's actually going to be a really massive number. So I hope everybody joins us in October to see more on how efficiency is going to impact the practice of law. And I'll hand it back to the panel.
Joshua, that's all such good stuff. I feel like you're just teasing us, right? Because this is where we're all going. Just the tip of the iceberg about consumer expectations paired with what lawyers think are happening in our legal sphere. Thank you for that. And I can't wait to see the legal trends report come out. Let me turn over to Ann Cosimano from ARAG. Ann, you've got a network, and I said this in the introduction, of 15,000 lawyers, right? If there ever was a huge law firm who was had the opportunity to leverage AI, boy, it's you. I'm dying to hear about your vision of legal services and what challenges both your company and the industry is facing.
Excellent. So I've shared my screen. Hopefully you can see it there okay. For those that are unfamiliar, ARAG is a legal insurance as an employee benefit. So we're sold through the voluntary benefit channel, and those who enroll in our plan are able to use are over 15,000 attorneys to assist them with their covered personal legal matters. And those matters range from the transactional simple matters, traffic tickets, getting an estate plan done, to the more complex, all the way up through dissolutions, consumer protection matters, so on. So those over 15,000 attorneys that we have average over 20 years of experience, and like I said, a highly ranked network. Our plan members, we survey every experience that they have with our attorneys, and they're ranked above a 9 on average, always above a 9 in the service that they provide. So more to lend credibility to the information that we're able to gather. We also survey those attorneys every year to find out how are they doing, what kinds of legal issues are they seeing our members are raising, and also how do they feel about technology and everything that's available to them out there. Our network is primarily comprised of solo and small law practitioners that serve our members and find the alternative fee structure that we have available appealing to them for a lot of reasons. We'll go into some of those. So let me see if I can get this to progress. Here we go. So the employers that we have that offer our plan in all areas, we arrange everything starting from 250 employer network on up. But wanted to give some information about the types of employers that are offering plans. So we see Fortune 100 and 500 are increasing in the numbers that are offering voluntary legal plans. And I see that as a trend towards really acceptance of this as an alternative model for attorneys to accept a fee structure other than what they're accustomed to. So this would be an alternative to that hourly billing structure. And I think something that really lends itself to AI assisted work in this area, because attorneys that can figure out how to accept and handle cases like this in a more efficient manner can really make something like an alternative fee model for legal service plans work for them. Those employers are in all industries. They're manufacturing, finance, education, professional services. And then really what we see attorneys enjoy about being a part of the network is they get referrals without advertisement. We're sending clients directly to their door. They're not having to go out and look for them. They can choose the areas that work for them. They don't have to accept referrals in all areas. So if there are attorneys that are able to make estate planning, as an example, something that works for them, they can come in and choose only to select that area of law for them. And then they get paid directly by us, so they don't have to write off any of their fees and worry about the collection of fees. So we talked about surveying and then all of our claims data that we have, and we have looked at that and separated it in all kinds of different ways to try to figure out how people are using legal services and what's trending right now in that space. And the way that we cut it this year was to look at it from a generational standpoint to see how people are using legal services and what's different depending on what age bracket people are in. And you can see we've shared here that people in their 30s were seeing or using the legal plan a lot more for consumer protection, trusts, family law issues, civil damages, those types of issues. Property protection, we're seeing an increase in people buying land and then they're wanting to protect it or having neighbor issues. Our members in their 40s are getting more trusts done, having more issues with consumer protection, civil damage, divorce, and then those post-decree matters that come after the divorce. And then those in their 50s, also seeing trust. We're seeing increased use in trust utilization really across the board as that's becoming more and more of a practice for people to use trust in their estate planning. And then consumer protection, civil damage, property transfer, and property protection. When we looked at our claims utilization, we wanted to see were there areas of law that are trending or areas where we're seeing gaps in coverage where people are asking for services that we don't have, or that we're needing to add coverage or add partnerships. And we're seeing trends in areas of elder law, diversity, equity, and inclusion matters. So making sure that we have coverages that are addressing the unique needs of the LGBTQ+ community, cybersecurity, data protection being an area that we're seeing a lot more requests for, Student loan issues, as we're seeing a lot of those going back into repayment, then cannabis laws as they're changing across the nation, and crypto. Added some info there and a plug for if you're interested in learning more about the network. But specifically as it relates to AI, we went out and asked our 15,000 attorneys how they're using AI in their practice. And what I found interesting was some of the responses that we got. I do think with the attorneys out there, we're seeing an increase in attorneys in the network that are indicating that they're using AI. But I do think there might be a bit of a gap in the attorney's understanding of what is AI, and sometimes what they might believe they're using that is AI generated might more be a tool that they're using like calendaring or something like that. So I do think there's an opportunity there for attorneys, maybe especially in the solo and small law practice space to understand a little bit more about how they can use AI in their practice to become more efficient in all of the tools that are available out there. You can see then on the right, we asked specifically, what are you using? And those were the tools that were referenced specifically: ChatGPT, Lexis, Calendly, Decision Vault, Wealth Counsel. And so really specifically tools that are assisting with like the intake and research drafting were the areas that our network was indicating they were already using AI. It'll be really interesting to see then in the future how quickly all of that adopts. And it's something we plan to ask every year to see how that's changing. There we go.
All right. Thank you very much, Ann. Mark Homer, let me turn the floor over to you. We always talk about marketing, and this is the time to do it. What a change going on in the legal field with marketing and the advancement of AI. Tell me what's changing. Tell me where there's opportunities. Tell me about marketing. Floor is yours.
Yeah, so I like to go into some of the trends like macroly with when you look across all marketing spend, especially for larger companies. I feel like we used to joke that legal was 5 to 7 or more years behind the average like marketer. I think in the last few years that has dramatically changed. I think the gap has gotten much closer. So things that are happening, in the macro marketing industry for like larger companies, CMOs, we're a lot closer to that in legal than I think we've ever been. So I'm going to share a few slides here. Do that real quick. So one of the things I have here is essentially well, I got a few different stats, but some from Gartner. Gartner did every year, reached out to all the CMOs and kind of says where things are going. And I find it interesting that we've always said that around 8 to 12% is a really good number for a budgeting for marketing, a percent of your revenue. And as we were heading into COVID, that's about what it was. For across like $1 billion companies down to like small medium businesses, they run the gamut on this report. But we've seen a constant drop since COVID, down to in 2024 they're saying it's about 7.7% of revenue now. So essentially what we're seeing is marketing budgets like macroeconomically are dropping. So they've gone down a bunch. But what's interesting is that digital marketing has won in the budget war, though. So, and I think if you really think about it, COVID was probably the beginner of this. I mean, it's about 9% increase in marketing budgets on digital, the digital specific part of marketing budgets in the last year, but it's about a 70% growth since COVID, right? So everything kind of like switched, things moved online, more people are working from home, people are harder to reach, there's more fragmentation than ever. We're not even sure if we're reaching real people these days or AI bots. So the idea of like going out digital versus just trying to do your normal media or networking and events, all these kind of things are way down. The other interesting thing, and I believe this is a kind of goes back to that fragmentation. As we see more fragmentation, I always believe that what the first thing that leads is paid media. So if I don't know how to access a market, let me go find who's accessing that market and pay them to access it, right? So it was Google, and we always went through Google. We had SEO and we had paid, but now there's like, how many social media platforms? Now there's, AI platforms. There's other, people getting in front and getting the eyeballs of our possible clients. So where we can and pay and put money there. I mean, there's streaming platforms now where you can buy ads for hundreds of dollars instead of millions of dollars for TV advertising, right? So paid media has increased a bunch, and we've seen that as well. Like with our clients, that paid media is a place that's working really well and getting great ROI as things are getting more fragmented. Again, this is that just, who's winning, right? 57% of all the marketing budgets, again, this is back from that Gartner study, are going to digital. So we are more than half. And you think like TV, you think all the big event marketing, all the big billboard marketing, from like large, Fortune 500s, and 57% now is going to digital. So that's been a big shift over the last, 4 to 5 years. The other interesting thing is where in paid media, paid search is still the #1. So it may not be all on Google now. I mean, Bing is really kind of like picking up because there's a lot of AI play over there, and like be aware. Paid social, again, I think that's where we've seen one of the largest growth in paid media. So people are spending money in the Meta network and other social networks, and then display ads. The fact that you can get out there and get your kind of like former billboard, put in places exactly targeted where you wanted to go and measure the ROI in a much better way. This is where we're seeing a lot of spend trending. Now let's talk about, the AI spend as you asked. So when you have less budget, you have to do more with it, right? And so this is where CMOs are citing that, look, AI is really what's allowing us to get away with this. We're able to return a positive return, keep my job, keep things going, right, to the big bosses of the corporations because of AI. They have, if we go back to that, earlier chart, it's, people budgets are way down, agency budgets are a little bit down. So they don't have as many resources to attack these things. So AI is what's allowing them to make their numbers. 95% of CMOs, right? So in the marketing side, so lawyers, maybe we're not there yet. Ann just showed 11%. 95% of CMOs are leveraging AI as one of their top investment priorities. 75% are already reporting that AI is making positive impact. So they're already using the tools. They're already getting, valid ROI on these tools. The interesting thing is, I think, where people are using AI. And this in marketing, I think a lot of people initially say, oh, I'm going to use AI to generate content. I'm going to use AI to write some blog articles and stuff and speed things up, maybe some social media content. And that's where I think a lot of people started. But I think what we're seeing is the better places to use AI are where you can get massive cost and time efficiency. And so it's all these manual things that took time that you can replace with AI. And one area is like, segmentation, ad targeting, personalization took a lot of time and a lot of research of data and a lot of turn time of people and manual, thought processes. So let me give you an example. This is something that we would typically have done in the past, right? Manually, and we probably, still do this with our clients a lot. So you run an ad campaign, you run paid media, you get a whole bunch of leads. We ask all our clients to please manually, rate every lead. You get a lead in, tell us 1 through 5, is that a good lead? And again, marketers, we've been doing this. Hopefully, your marketers have been doing this for a while, and you're getting that feedback. You communicate it back to your agency. Then we go look and say, okay, what campaigns drove those really good leads? Which ones drove the bad leads? Now let me manually go back to my paid media people and say, hey, we need to work on this. So we're adjusting campaigns, we're adjusting keywords, we're adjusting bidding, costs, prices. We might even build some new landing pages. Now that's a manual effort. I got a developer coding some pages. And so I'm able to repeat this every couple months, right? So this kind of whole factor takes about 2 to 3 months before we're now adjusting things to measure and try to beat our ROI in the previous 3 months. Insert AI. AI can now rate every lead. So now let's say you get 50 leads. You're like, I can rate every lead. But let's say you switch up to like 400 leads a week. Are you manually going to be able to keep up with that? Well, now AI can rate every lead. AI can look at all the campaigns that drove those and start making the adjustments right away. They can even use because we're not talking about search content stuff, we can actually use AI to generate and update the landing pages. Now we can do that every few days. So think about the compound effect that AI is providing on every few days versus every few months, and just the benefit. And Patrick, you mentioned that announcement, and this is where I saw things going a year ago. We started working on stuff, and I just realized that there was companies out there doing this better, and so we have actually merged GNGF into one of the large companies that has a great platform that's already doing stuff like this, and that's it's where it's going. we need to be there, and we need to be there for our clients. So we have actually merged GNGF into the Scorpion platform. And that is my AI of marketing and the trends.
Well, that is a lot, and a lot to think about, the speed in which marketing is changing. And tell you, that's all eye-opening. Let me turn over the last 5 minutes of this part of the discussion before we get into the panel to Dru Armstrong. And Dru, we were talking earlier about consolidation. Your company is one of those that is taking up a lot of real estate to change the face of law for solo and small practitioners, small and medium firms. Dying to hear about your vision. What's your lens about what's happening with AI and what's happening in the legal world with solo and small practitioners? All yours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. I do not have slides to share. As someone who went to law school, that's not as much my DNA. So I thought I would give you a little bit of an overview about how we're thinking about tech adoption and GenAI here at Affinipay. And then I thought I would touch on a couple trends that I think were reflected in the comments by the other amazing panelists. So first of all, for those who are wondering, what is Affinipay? Our core DNA was to bring digital payments into the legal market 15 years ago. Amy Porter, our founder, pioneered that with the LawPay brand. So you think about kind of digital transformation. There was a time and a place where you couldn't actually take a credit card in our industry to get paid. Today, we're the largest legal processor in the United States, and we process well over 10 billion in legal services fees through our platform. Most trusted, most used. We, a couple of years ago, saw that the need to get paid was converging with the need to run your practice and run it really efficiently. And so we acquired MyCase and a couple other platforms, as Patrick mentioned. I think one thing that we are incredibly bullish on is the vision for law firms running as modern businesses, right? And I think one of the things that was really interesting that Mark was talking about is kind of where CMOs go, so to do best practices for marketing your firm, because at the core of it, it's a business, right? And so we're really proud of the fact that today we serve well over 70,000 law firms, and we're really part of that transformational journey for them as they're either adopting technology for the first time or continuing to enhance their stack. So just a couple of things that we're thinking about here at Affinipay as we kind of watch the market transform. So one is we're still actually in pretty early days on digital adoption. I think one thing that we think a lot about is that there's been two major compelling events that has really created kind of acceleration for demand for both legal payments and core legal practice management. And first and foremost was COVID. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we all lived through that. And that really changed the game in terms of both client expectations, as well as how lawyers were able to run their practice, manage their team, et cetera. The second, obviously, has been generative AI. And I think Joshua did a great job kind of highlighting how there's real appetite and demand and a lean in from lawyers to adopt generative AI, right? And they're seeing the transformational opportunity. But the reality is when we look at the data, and we just refreshed our market work, only about 35% of law firms today have adopted kind of modern cloud-based practice management, right? And so a lot of attorneys today are still using different piecemeal solutions. I thought it was really interesting how Anne highlighted a stack of technology, many of which are not AI, right? Calendly, which is just a very well-known and well-loved calendaring tool, right? And so I think we're still in this foundational transformation of a practice, right? And in order to really get the best of generative AI, I would say that you probably need both a modern-based cloud practice management. There's many good options. And then you'd also need kind of the modern legal research where a lot of investment is going into kind of enabling that with AI. There's a lot of good opportunity there, but you kind of need the foundation laid in order to be able to really unlock the potential of GenAI. I can give you a couple of thoughts about that. So number one, I'd say critical to kind of GenAI kind of reaching its full potential is going to be continued adoption. And I do think the appetite and desire to not be left behind and realize its potential will continue the acceleration that we've seen. We've seen it go from 75% to 65% in only 2 years. So you could argue that we're kind of ramping up that curve more quickly because of the potential and the ROI associated with GenAI. I think the second piece that we think a lot about is, and I think it was highlighted in some of the data that Josh showed very early on, which is like, there's actually still a really big expectation to trust gap that exists around generative AI. And when I say that, on one hand, a lot of the data points highlighted, oh my gosh, this is going to really drive so much efficiency. I'm going to drive out costs. I'm going to get time back. I'm going to, even clients are like, I don't need lawyers. Gosh, promised land. Just kidding. We don't agree with that. You're always going to need lawyers. But on the other hand, people really don't fully trust it yet, right? And I think that exists at both a macro level and a micro level. And so until we're able to kind of mature and close that gap, where people feel like they can somewhat blindly trust the power of AI. For example, I think when you think about kind of growth as the lifeblood to a firm or a business, Mark's outsourcing a lot of critical thinking work through AI tools, right? Like how you're scoring leads and how you're providing feedback, what campaigns you're running. If AI gets that wrong, you've got to trust that it's going to get it right, because it could have very meaningful impact to your business and to your ability to grow. And so I think we're still in this more nascent period. We're getting better and faster. And so one thing that we're thinking a lot about as we're releasing generative AI tools real time and platform is the core promise of practice management is to give you time back, right? And it needs to be a platform that you can trust with your most vital and secure information, to do your core work, to onboard your team, to communicate with your clients. But every time we release a new generative AI feature, so we started with smart text editing and document summarization, we take a lot of time to put that in beta, right? And what that means is that we've got clients getting results saying, is this good or is this bad? And if we're not using the right prompts or the right LLM, or, and there's a lot of judgment that goes into this, then we have to retool, right? And so I think a big role for technology companies today is to close the gap between these very, very high expectations that could fundamentally reshape our industry, but also achieve a very high trust bar, right? And do that. And in order to do that, we have to really deeply partner with our clients in ways that and our clients being attorneys, in ways that we potentially hadn't done before, right? And it may take longer to build some of these tools because you're prioritizing, the trust factor equally with the promised land, right? Which is the full potential of GenAI. I think the last thing that I would also be thinking about, and just to kind of touch on this fundamental transformation, which is like, are we really going to reshape, the billable hour model? Are we going to reprice it? One thing that we as technologists are still figuring out is like, what is actually the cost of GenAI to us, right? And so there's really, most companies like ours, and I imagine the other folks on this webinar, we're leveraging in very kind of high trust, secure ways, other models that are being built. We're potentially training them, we're building prompts. And the industry is moving so quickly that, like, as we are figuring out what to use, the view on what the cost is going to be is going to shift. And so I think for the full shakeout on what does this mean in terms of what you build, it means you also have to understand the fundamental cost structure around GenAI and the ability for a firm to use it. And so I think we're still kind of in early innings as you think about the inputs that ultimately drive that billable hour, because it will impact the fundamental cost structure for the firm in addition to the staffing model. And so there's just, it's one thing, when I went to law school, I graduated. If you had told me I would find my way back into legal tech and get to be in it in a really exciting and transformational time, I don't think I would have believed you. But the reality is it's an incredibly exciting time. Legal is the #2 most likely to be disrupted industry by GenAI. And yet it's really amazing to be partnered with lawyers as we figure this out together, because it's critical we do it right and we do it in a really thoughtful way. So that's my thinking.
Thank you, Dru. I love that. Here's the cool thing about this webinar, right? We have 4 people who are at the top of their companies who have the ability to change the face of the practice of law with every step you and your team envision and put into place. And that is rare, because usually these webinars are, me, the rank and file lawyer, talking about what we think should happen. And I love that you guys are the people that can make things happen. And with that, because you're such a unique panel, I want to do this speed round. And I don't intend it to be a speed round, but look, we've got about 10 minutes to answer some key questions. So short answers, want to hear from as many as I can. Let's cover these lenses. Let's talk about these issues. One of the ones that's out there the most is just this, and it's a big picture, right? Everyone's worrying about AI. Lawyers are worried about ethics. If I use this, what happens to me? It's a cost-benefit analysis. Look, we're on the same page, I think. AI is the biggest thing to ever happen. A. B. AI is something we all need to lead into. It's not going away. We need to adopt and leverage it. Tell me how we need to do that. What is your advice to the rank and file lawyers who are looking at AI right now? Panel? Go ahead. Yeah.
So leaning in, like Dru said, is definitely like step one. It doesn't have to be that you completely change your law firm, but it is worth saying, I'm going to try this one tool for this one activity. So for me, I think most importantly is taking a look at something that's specific to legal, so that the contract terms recognize your duty of confidentiality and will help you enforce that. And then figure out, does this tool do something that saves me time and gives a benefit to my client? And if it can do just one thing that meets that criteria, then you should adopt it. So what I see most lawyers trying is some type of AI drafting tool, not a legal research tool, but a drafting tool, something that gets them from a blank page to just like text. And that leap forward from the blank page to something is a huge boost in productivity. I know it is for me. And so take a look at a legal specific drafting tool and give it a try. That's what I think lawyers should be starting with.
Mark?
Yeah, and I want to just remind people out there that, excuse me, there's a lot, like we have, vendors here, right? Like there are people who are investing in AI into tools you already have, right? Start leaning into that, like maybe test things that somebody else has already done all the testing and work on and didn't increase your fee that much to do it, right? So why add other tools when you can just add the AI, turn on the AI component for, like my case, Clio, et cetera, right? So like that is an area where, like back in the day, it used to be $20,000 to buy a server to start a startup in 1999. And now you can do that for $5 on Amazon, right? Like why try to reinvent it all yourself? Leverage some tools that are already out there.
Let me turn this question around just a little bit. I have this idea that AI gives this opportunity for creating a bigger gap between have and have-nots, and there's an argument against that as well. But when I see that outside of the legal field, 95% investment versus in the legal field, 11% investment that you guys showed, that was kind of a shocking dichotomy between this. And I'm just wondering about that gap. Should lawyers be heavily investing right now in AI? And if we don't, what does that mean?
I mean, I guess I would echo what I think Mark said, which is it's less about investing heavily in GenAI and it's more about investing in your technology infrastructure. And I do think we will see a big gap emerge between those that have a technology strategy for their practice. And that strategy can be as simple as a practice management platform, right? Or it can be as comprehensive as you want it to be. But I do think you need a technology strategy because a lot of the way GenAI is going to be consumed is through those core platforms that you choose. And I would say, for example, internal to our business, we use Marketo and Salesforce. Significant amount of GenAI available already in platform. And so if you've aligned yourself with the right forward-looking technology partner, they will help you future-proof your practice, right? And so I think it's put the foundation in place and then continue to step your way towards leveraging GenAI as part of that broader investment.
I saw an interesting practice. Just last week, I took my dog to the vet. And as part of that process, they gave me during my intake a form to sign that they were beginning to utilize an intake tool that was AI based, that was going to listen to the conversation that we had in the room and transcribe and do all of the notes and the intake for my whole veterinary visit. The thing that I thought was interesting was that they did the appropriate legal documentation where they had me read through consent to the use of the AI and sign that I was approving that it could be used in that format. I was approving the use of that tool. I was approving the sharing of my dog's confidential information in this avenue. And I thought it was interesting to consider all of that and how it was going to then apply in the legal field, and how attorneys might need to be considering all of these steps in their adoption of AI, depending on how you're going to use it within your practice. And so I'd say I am passionate and love the opportunities that AI presents for attorneys and the efficiencies that I believe it can build, but also want to be sure that we're doing it in the right way, and that we're making sure that people are aware, understand how you're using it, who you're sharing the information with, that you're still taking data and privacy into consideration. The way that we're starting to use AI at ARAG is more in the attorney-facing realm. So through use of chatbot and creating that environment where we know all of the information that is put into the tool is our information, and that is accurately delivering a response to our attorneys, and felt like for that audience, that was a place where we could do that to gain confidence and comfort in the tool before using that in a member-facing capacity, and figure out how to do that and do that well. So I'd say being willing to kind of step in and try things, but doing it in a responsible way and keeping in mind all of your ethical and legal obligations to your client.
Can I ask each of you for just two quick answers? What is the most interesting AI use case that you're seeing? Anne? Maybe you just answered it with the vet. I don't know, but what's your
I mean, I really did think, just outside of the legal practice, that was the most in-your-face one that I had seen, where it was somebody acknowledging that they were using it and making sure that they were getting the proper permission. And so I found that really interesting. We just had our advisory board in, which are attorneys from all across the United States, and they come in and they were sharing with us their use cases. What I found interesting is not a single one of them was worried that AI was going to replace them or take their jobs. They were indicating they thought AI was the equivalent of a overconfident intern, but that overconfident intern for them, they felt helped free up a lot of their intellectual capital to be able to be used on the more important things. And they were trusting it more with assistance in developing communication, or being able to step away from Boolean searches for their case law for brief.
Joshua, 15 seconds, top two interesting use cases.
I think the biggest savings for clients is in e-discovery and the ability for document summarization and searching to happen there. I think the best use case for lawyers in developing their practice is actually AI generated newsletters that they then approve and send out in their marketing automation.
Mark Homer.
Obviously, I'm going to lean into the marketing. I mean, the example I gave was one that was one of the reasons why I literally sold an entire company to somebody else, was because the bigger the set of data you have, the faster you're going to be able to make the turns on behalf of clients. So I think leveraging large investments like paid advertising is one. And then I would second that generation of content and things that are not search engine optimized content is a great place.
Love that. Dru.
I mean, I think that one of the biggest ways we're going to see GenAI change technology is just fundamentally how we interface with it, right? And I think we can see it, we use a lot of voice prompts today, which is not generative AI. And so the idea that you can really run your practice in a very seamless way. And I think we think about it today as kind of a co-pilot experience, but I think it's going to fundamentally change how we think about building workflows and doing tasks and sending invoices. So I think that's, and you think about an industry that has felt burdened by tech adoption, it's usually the number one reason people don't switch or buy tech is that fear of the migration and the adoption. And I think if we can remove a lot of that friction, we can unlock huge value. And then I think the second is the intersection of what I would consider more traditional BI AI, which is kind of more data analytics and predictive with generative AI. So generative AI is the conversational piece. It's the natural language models. It's the ability to provide kind of language prompts and to have it provide you with predictive actions and insights on your bill rates, on sending an invoice, on a citation you missed. So I think there's going to be a lot that changes on how we consume technology, and hopefully that gives lawyers a lot of time back to serve their clients.
So I want to make sure we each have time. I want to hear your predictions. And I know everybody's going to have a minute or two of predictions. But let me ask this one singular question because it's important, I think. The new ABA opinion out talks about our duties to billing. And it says we have to essentially bill in real time, right? We do AI, we save time, we bill that actual time. That's different from the way billable hours can work. Joshua, how is this AI efficiency going to affect billing and the law practice model?
So I think there are a positive aspect and a negative aspect to this. One thing that I see as really positive is I'm hoping GenAI will allow lawyers to better communicate the value of what they're billing. So rather than it being like point 12 email, it'll be spent 10 minutes crafting an email about these 3 points, and that's what you see on your bill. And AI can write that for you. And so hopefully that communicates the value of the effort. But the negative is, I think we are going to see this outside expectation that the time and labor required will be decreasing as we use these AI tools. And so we're going to have to figure out how to adjust, one, our pricing for that, but two, how to communicate against that expectation. And that's that positive benefit. And I think AI is both like the cause and the solution to that problem.
That's awesome. All right, let's do predictions, guys. We got less than 2 minutes apiece. I want to get through all of your predictions. Mark, Homer, so much going on in marketing, so many changes going on even with your own company. What's going to happen in 2025? What are we going to see?
So for me, the prediction is that as people invest a little bit more in marketing and start leveraging some of these vendors that have the AI already, basically don't try to figure it out yourself, leverage people already have it. Just a little bit more movement above that medium 7% or whatever we're looking at. Just moving a little bit above that's going to give you a massive compound effect.
And Cosimano, what's going to happen in 2025? What is your vision? What's your prediction?
I think AI is going to make alternative fee structures a little more appealing and maybe even necessary for attorneys. And so I think figuring out maybe how to price more at unbundled legal services, you're pricing more for the service that you're providing versus the time that you're spending might be something that attorneys are able to embrace and figure out how to make work for them in their practice.
Dru Armstrong, what's your prediction for 2025? How's the world going to look different?
I mean, I think from a Gartner hype cycle, we're in this massive proliferation of GenAI use cases. And so I thought, Mark's suggestion, like there's massive amounts of investment going in. And so I think, there's going to be a lot more to come out. I would say fundamentally, though, I think we usually overestimate the rate at which change happens and underestimate the magnitude. And so I think we're still in this kind of early days. And so if you're thinking, well, shoot, I'm nowhere on my GenAI strategy, let alone repricing my entire fee structure, I think we're all going to be on this learning curve for the next 3 to 5 years, right? And so I think we're going to see a lot of use cases, a lot of dollars flowing towards it. And then we're going to start to see the emergence of some real winners and some real transformational technology that should move our industry forward.
Joshua Lenon, your prediction, maybe it's Clio's prediction, maybe you have some little help with the legal trends report. I don't know. You tell me, where are we going in 2025?
I'm going to give you one spoiler from the upcoming legal trends report. And that is that we have seen the rate of flat fee revenue grow faster than the rate of hourly billing revenue. I think that's indicating that law firms are starting to get the picture that there is a need to focus on efficiency. There is a way to bill that actually both protects the law firm and the client when dealing with these like technological disruptions. And that is flat fee billing. And so we're going to break down all of that in our upcoming legal trends report. You can actually attend the session virtually by registering right now for free at cliocloudconference.com. Self-interested plug. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, we got you. I want to take at least one question for the audience before we wrap this thing up. And I'm looking at some of the questions. There's so many questions. Guys, thank you so much for giving us so many great questions. I want to touch on one because I think it's one of those questions out there. Like, how often do you all hear when you're on a panel, like, is AI going to replace us? Right. And Joshua, you had that little slide that said a lot of lawyers maybe weren't as worried about it. When I'm in talks, I hear that question almost every time. Here's one of the questions from our audience. In the slide about most legal professionals not worried about replacing or AI replacing professionals, the subtext referred to the numbers only being about whether AI will make paralegals less necessary. What about making lawyers less necessary? Dru?
I mean, I think you can play that forward, that depending on the services, people are going to try to sell. Like, I think Joshua already had it, that people are already using GenAI for questions they may otherwise would have used an attorney. And so I think the reality is there's kind of the core reasons that you still will always need an attorney and an attorney's judgment, but anything at the margin is going to get eaten up by GenAI, right? And it should be less disruptive. So if we think, for example, 30% of paralegal tasks and 50% of administrative tasks, it may only be 10%. But I think that's still pretty transformational. I would say the optimist view on all of this is that there's still massive misalignment of supply and demand for legal services in America. And so while there's the P and Q of one case, the price, of the billable hour and the number of hours, the hope is that this unlocks the ability for that 10% of lawyer time or 30% of paralegal time for people to take on more cases that today other folks can't afford, right? So it's going to happen, but at an hourly rate, and it's not going to be to the point where we don't need as many lawyers. I think if anything, more lawyers serving more clients should be the vision.
And when I hear that question about, whether we're going to be replaced, I often tell people, no, you're not going to be replaced unless you don't use AI. And then the lawyers that do are probably going to take your market share. And that's about where I stop that. What's your advice to people who are worried about the effect of AI on their job security?
Sorry about that. So I think really it's exactly as you shared, those that don't use it. I think every time that there has been an iteration or some kind of progress that's been made, we get this fear that that's going to replace us. I think when everything moved to online legal research versus the books, when even you can take it all the way back to the invention of the computer, and when the computer came, I think people were concerned. I think those that adopt technology and do that effectively tend to be the ones that are continue to be the most successful. And so I'd say trying to figure out how to adopt this in small ways is probably going to get you leaps and bounds ahead of others, and that there's always going to be that work, and there'll be availability for people to be able to pursue. Couldn't agree with Dru more. Matters that maybe otherwise they would have let go. This might open up that avenue for people to be able to use legal services more often than what they would have.
Oh my goodness. This is that technology thing where you lose where you lose your screen. Yes, hold on. I know you don't have to be right back, but I'll be right back here. I have somehow managed to lose my screen. Give me just 1 sec.
Patrick, I was just answering questions in the Q&A and I mistyped one. So Monica, I threw the link you asked for in the chat window. It won't be in the Q&A window. So sorry.
I'm back. You know, you push one thing or something comes up and the world goes sideways. But let me wrap this thing up. And sorry for that disjointed moment there. But let me do big thanks to all of you as panelists, Joshua Lenon and Cosimano, Dru Armstrong, Mark Homer. You guys are rock stars. So thankful for you being here. We have the American Legal Technology Awards October 6th, the Bar Mansion in Austin. I got to tell you, something's going to happen that's pretty exciting. Do you know who our MC is for this? Drum roll, please. It's Damian Real. And not only is Damian like a exciting, amazing MC, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get some Broadway show tunes out of him. This is going to be fun watching Damian be our MC and sing and do this. I'm going to suggest you get tickets right away. They won't be around much longer. It all happens the night before. Clio, you can find out more at AmericanLegalTechnology.com. Team, on behalf of the American Legal Technology Awards and my friends and co-founders, the amazing Tom Martin and Kat Moon, I thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for all of you for being here today to participate in all of this. I appreciate you being here. Remember this, be the innovator, because we are the people we're waiting for. Thank you, everyone. Take care.